Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you were taught about your world, your creator, and your purpose was a lie. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. A carefully planned deception designed to keep you blind and obedient. This is the hidden truth buried in an ancient gospel lost to time, a banned book called The Apocalypse of Adam. It was sealed away for over 1,500 years, hidden in the sands of Egypt. And what it reveals is strange, dangerous, and completely different from the version of Genesis that most people know. In this lost version of the story, Adam isn't just a curious man who ate the wrong fruit. He's something more. Something powerful. And the one who calls himself God isn't the loving father figure carved into stained glass windows. He's a controlling force, a lesser being, desperate to keep humanity asleep. According to the Apocalypse of Adam, the true beginning wasn't about sin or disobedience. It was about amnesia. Adam and Eve were beings of light, not just flesh and blood, but divine souls from a higher realm. They didn't start in the Garden of Eden. They were placed there. Trapped. Their real origin was far beyond this world, in a place of light, freedom, and knowledge. Then came the fall. But it wasn't because they disobeyed a rule. It was because Eve remembered something she wasn't supposed to. She looked around the garden and saw it for what it really was, not paradise, but a cage. She remembered the realm of light. She remembered who they had been before their bodies were formed from dust. The being that had shaped their physical forms wasn't their creator. He was an imposter. A jealous power posing as God, enraged by their potential. He didn't make their souls, he only crafted their cages. And when he saw that Eve was starting to wake up, he acted quickly. He tore her from Adam, divided them into male and female, and stripped away their knowledge. Not just their memories, but their unity, their power, their light. From that moment forward, Adam and Eve became two, separate, confused, and mortal. The imposter ruled through fear. He made them worship him as the only God. He taught them to forget what they once were. The world they were given was a copy, a shadow of the true reality. The God they served was not the source of light but the master of illusion. And so, humanity was born into slavery. This story was never supposed to be told. It was labeled heresy. The early church silenced the Gnostics who preserved it, burning their scrolls and hunting down their followers. But the Apocalypse of Adam survived, buried under centuries of silence. And now that it has resurfaced, its message is more dangerous than ever. Because it doesn't just rewrite the story of Eden. It exposes the entire foundation of religion and flips it inside out. God, in this version, is not a savior. He's a captor. The snake in the garden, the one blamed for tempting Eve, was trying to help her remember. The knowledge of good and evil wasn't a curse. It was a spark. And once it lit the fire, Adam started to wake up too. Centuries passed. Adam grew old. And before he died, he called his son Seth to his side. He told him everything. The memories. The deception. The beings of light who appeared to him, messengers from the true realm, who reminded him who he really was. He passed on this forbidden knowledge, the one thing the false god feared most. Because if humanity remembered its true nature, if even one person saw through the illusion, the entire system would crack. The prison would collapse. Remember to join our community by subscribing to this channel. The apocalypse in the title doesn't mean destruction. The word means revelation. An unveiling. It's the moment the curtain is pulled back and the truth stands in the open. The story isn't about fire and brimstone. It's about waking up. And once Adam did, the false god panicked. He sent disaster after disaster to erase the truth. He flooded the world. He scorched cities. He erased lineages and wiped memories. But the knowledge didn't die. It was hidden, passed down in secret through the bloodline of Seth. And eventually, a new being would arrive. One who would not be fooled. One who would plant not just a tree of knowledge but a forest. From the moment Adam and Eve lost their memory, they stepped into a dream. Not the kind that inspires, but a carefully built illusion, one designed to keep them small, scared, and silent. This illusion wasn't just about where they were but who they were. They forgot that they came from something greater, from a place beyond time, beyond suffering. The realm they had known before was pure, radiant, and free. But now, they were locked inside a world of shadows, governed by a being pretending to be their master. That being, the false god, didn't create the light, only copies of it. What he made was a distorted version of truth. He gave rules and punishments. He demanded obedience. He fed them fear and called it faith. And when they accepted it, the illusion became their reality. In the apocalypse of Adam, this illusion is more than just a trick, it's a system. A trap that makes people believe that pain, struggle, and guilt are natural. That suffering is holy. That questioning is wrong. The Gnostics, the ancient mystics who shared this hidden story, believed that light and knowledge were the true nature of the soul. In their view, every person carries a divine spark, a tiny fragment of the eternal. This inner light can't be created or destroyed. But it can be forgotten. And when it's forgotten, we become slaves to the fake world around us. Because as long as people are afraid, they don't ask questions. They follow orders. They accept limits that were never real to begin with. Truth, on the other hand, doesn't need control. It doesn't demand loyalty or kneel on command. Real truth sets people free, and that's exactly what the false god didn't want. He wanted worship, not awakening. And so the illusion became tradition, passed down through generations, woven into stories, rules, and rituals, taught in homes. But behind all of it, the real truth waited. The world we live in is filled with systems that reward silence and punish insight. People who try to speak up are often labeled rebels, heretics, or worse. But this isn't new. It's the same pattern that's been repeated for ages. The same illusion, updated with new clothes. In this story, the real battle isn't between angels and demons or good and evil the way we've been told. It's between those who remember and those who remain asleep. Truth is not always comfortable. It doesn't fit neatly inside the stories we've been sold. But it is the only way out of the prison. The moment Adam began to remember, the system cracked. When he told Seth, the knowledge spread. According to the forgotten text known as the Apocalypse of Adam, the truth about our beginnings didn't start with dust or ribs or paradise. It started with light, unshakable, eternal, untouchable. And from that light came consciousness. A type of existence so far beyond this world, language itself struggles to describe it. Adam and Eve weren't just the first people. They were luminous beings, shaped from the essence of a higher place. A realm untouched by suffering, untouched by time. They didn't evolve from Earth but descended from something older, brighter, and purer. That's the secret the false god tried to erase. When he formed their bodies from clay, he didn't give them life, he confined it. He didn't create their spirits, he captured them. Souls of immense power were forced into fragile vessels. And worse, they were made to forget. The creator in this story, known by many names but most often called Sakla, meaning fool, couldn't produce true life. He could only imitate. He made flesh, but not soul. He made rules, but not wisdom. He offered control, not freedom. His greatest fear was that they would remember. Eve was the first to see through the illusion. She recognized the garden for what it really was, not a sanctuary, but a simulation. Not a gift, but a trap. The moment she began to recall the truth, the false god struck. This division wasn't just physical. It shattered their knowledge, fractured their strength, and left them vulnerable. The balance they once embodied was gone. And in its place, confusion and fear took root. But even divided, their true nature didn't disappear. It simply went dormant. That dormant power is what the Gnostics believed still exists in every human. Are you enjoying the story? Support our channel by clicking the subscribe button. A divine inheritance. Not because of bloodlines, or rituals, or belief systems, but because of origin. The soul remembers, even when the mind forgets. Buried deep beneath the conditioning, the fear, and the endless noise of modern life, there is a part of you that still knows. The story of Adam and Eve is not just about two individuals. It's a blueprint, a metaphor for the human experience. Every person carries this memory, this buried truth, the knowledge of the original self. And that light doesn't belong to Sakla or any false power. It belongs to the realm of the eternal. The place from which you were sent, not as a punishment, but as a seed. What the apocalypse of Adam dares to say, and what makes it so dangerous, is that salvation doesn't come from outside. It doesn't require temples or rituals or obedience. It requires remembering, peeling back the layers, seeing the illusion for what it is, and most of all, claiming the truth about who you are. You are a fragment of the original light. And no force, no God, no threat can ever take that from you. Unless you let them. Once the truth began to spread, the false god knew he had a problem. Adam had awakened. Seth had inherited the hidden knowledge. The light was no longer confined. It had taken root, passing from soul to soul, moving quietly beneath the surface of the world. The power built on fear began to weaken. And so, the false god didn't hesitate. He launched a plan not to save the world but to wipe out the ones who remembered it wasn't real. The flood came first. Not as a divine reset, but as a calculated purge. The goal wasn't cleansing, it was erasure. The line of Seth, those who still carried the spark of the higher realm, became the target. Their knowledge, their memories, their connection to the eternal, all marked for destruction. But water wasn't sent to wash away sin. It was sent to drown memory. Some were lifted out of reach by beings from the realm of light. They were protected, not by a boat, but by a cloud of light, a sacred shield that moved them beyond the reach of the flood. They didn't just survive. They escaped with their awareness intact. When the flood failed, the false god turned to fire. Entire cities were reduced to ash. In places where memory stirred too brightly, flames fell from the sky. This was not punishment for wickedness but punishment for awakening. Sodom, long painted as a place of sin, held truths that burned too bright to be allowed. Just as with the flood, those who remembered were gathered, not by force, but by invitation. Great luminous beings descended, lifted them beyond the reach of fire, and carried them to safety. With both water and fire defeated, the false god turned to his last weapon, confusion. He appeared like a bolt of light, carrying the spark to millions. His presence cracked the illusion wherever it touched. People remembered. Systems shook. But before the truth could spread too far, his image was twisted. Some said he was divine. Some called him mad. Others tried to claim he belonged to them. The deeper meaning of his message was buried under doctrine, ritual, and legend. Even his origin became a maze. Some said he was born from a virgin. Others claimed he descended from heaven in secret. Still others told stories of flowers, prophets, and miracles, all shadows of the same figure, none able to capture what he truly was. And so, the false god stood back, content to watch the confusion grow. The awakened recognized one another, not through symbols, but through essence. Through knowing. Through the way their soul moves when it hears truth. The line of Seth never ended. It lived through survivors. Through people who felt the world pressing down on them and still reached for something higher. It lived in places untouched by conquest. It lived in dreams, in music, in quiet moments when the noise faded and something sacred stirred. The war on memory was never about blood. It was about keeping people disconnected from themselves. Making them believe they were small, fragile, and forgettable. Filling their heads with fear so they would never dare to remember what was buried beneath. The Gnostics knew this. That's why they preserved the story. Not as a tale of ancient days, but as a warning. The battle wasn't over. It was still unfolding, in silence, in spirit, in the space between waking and sleep. One of the most powerful parts of this story is about what's going to happen in the future. Not the future of cities or weather, but something much deeper, the destiny of people who carry a spark of something greater. This part of the story talks about prophecies, messages about what's coming, and visions, which are like dreams or glimpses of truth shown to special people. Adam talks about how the world is ruled by 13 different kingdoms. These aren't just places on a map but different groups or systems. Each one tries to tell the story of a special being called the Illuminator, but none of them get it quite right. The Illuminator is not just a person but a symbol of pure truth and wisdom. He shines like a light in the middle of darkness. His job is to wake people up from lies and help them remember who they truly are. Each of the 13 kingdoms makes up its own version of where the Illuminator came from and what he means. They try to explain to him using their own stories and traditions. Some say he came from the sky. Others say he was born to a prophet. One version says he came from a young girl who never knew a man. Another says he grew from the earth or even appeared from a flower. These kingdoms all try to fit the Illuminator into their own ideas. They tell stories that sound important but miss the real message. They are trying to describe something huge using only small, human ideas. It's like trying to explain the sun using only the light from a candle. In the story, each kingdom speaks one by one. They give their version of how the Illuminator appeared. One by one, their stories get stranger and less believable. Each one adds confusion instead of clarity. These aren't meant to be correct. They are examples of how people can take a bright truth and twist it into something they can control. But then, the story shifts. After 12 kingdoms have spoken, a new voice appears. This is the 13th kingdom, but it's different from the others. This one doesn't belong to the world of confusion. It doesn't tell a made-up story. It doesn't try to own or control the truth. This 13th kingdom says that the Illuminator didn't come from human blood or strange magic. It says he came from a higher place, chosen by the eternal source. It doesn't try to explain him with myths. It knows that the Illuminator's power isn't from the world. It's from beyond everything people know. It's from the true origin of life. This last kingdom stands for people who don't follow the rulers of the world. They live by something deeper. They're not trapped by lies. They don't need to invent stories. They remember. All the confusion, all the noise from the other kingdoms starts to fade. The Illuminator, the one who carries the spark of the highest light, appears, not to take over, but to set people free. This final part of the prophecy is called eschatological salvation. That's a big word, but it just means the great rescue at the end of time. It means that when everything is falling apart, something good will happen. The chosen ones, the people who still carry the light inside, will be saved. But this rescue doesn't come through force or war. It comes through knowledge. The kingdoms that tried to control the truth will fall away. The systems that confuse people will break. What will remain is light, peace, clarity. The prophecy isn't about something happening far away. It's something that can begin inside anyone. Anyone who listens. Anyone who questions. Anyone who still feels that quiet pull towards something higher. The visions in the apocalypse of Adam aren't just predictions. They're instructions. They show how people fall asleep to the truth and how they can wake up again. They show how the world builds layers of lies and how light can still break through. After all the floods, the fires, the false stories, and the failed rulers, one truth remains: the light never disappeared. It was never taken. It was only forgotten. What began as a warning became a roadmap. The story wasn't written to scare but to shake. To unsettle the mind just enough so it questions what it's been taught. Not because everything we've learned is wrong, but because so much has been hidden, covered, twisted. And yet, beneath all that, something real still breathes. Adam's message is not a myth about ancient people. It's a mirror. It shows the moment a soul begins to see through the fog and feel the pull of something deeper. A tug from beyond this world, quiet but insistent, reminding us that we are not defined by fear, pain, or control. We were not made to serve. We were made to remember. The real revelation isn't about some God in the sky or some war in heaven. It's about the battle inside each of us, between who we were told to be and who we really are. The apocalypse, in its truest form, is not the end of the world. It's the end of unknowing. The hidden gospel reveals that the systems we trust are fragile. The rulers we follow may be imposters. The stories we cling to may be shadows of something brighter. But instead of falling into despair, we are offered something else: clarity. Are you enjoying this story? Click the Super Thanks button. It's a way to financially support our work. Your help keeps this content alive and free, allowing us to continue bringing you stories like this. We see that the kingdoms trying to explain the divine have only confused it. We see that the Illuminator was never meant to be worshipped or feared, but recognized. This entire story builds to one moment, not of war, but of realization. The moment you stop waiting for truth to arrive and start listening for where it already lives. The moment you realize the spark Adam passed to Seth, the same light protected through floods and fires still moves through you. The powers that built empires out of lies wanted that light buried. Because when a soul wakes up, it no longer obeys blindly. It no longer plays small. It no longer fears being different. A soul that remembers cannot be tamed. That's the real threat this ancient text reveals, not a being with wings, but a person who can think freely. Not a demon in disguise, but a human who refuses to believe the illusion. What survives at the end isn't a church or a doctrine. It's the knowing. The recognition that you are more than bones and breath. That you came from something eternal. That no flood can drown you. No flame can erase you. Because what you truly are was never born here. And it cannot die here. The Illuminator lives in those who reflect, those who question, those who listen to the deeper rhythm beneath the noise. In every moment of honesty, every act of courage, every decision to seek rather than follow, that light flickers back to life. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel. Until the next video.